I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the murder for hire of loving father Dan Markel. The question is, who did the hiring? Was it Dan's ex-brother-in-law, his ex-mother-in-law, or the whole family? Here's the story. FSU law professor Dan Markel's death sent shockwaves through Tallahassee and far beyond. On a July morning in 2014, the loving father of two boys was gunned down in his own driveway, the victim of a calculated, cold-blooded plot. Investigators would later unravel a tangled web of betrayal and greed, pointing directly to his estranged in-laws. His brother-in-law, Charlie Adelson, emerged as a central figure, accused of orchestrating the hit to resolve a bitter family feud over Markel's divorce from Wendy Adelson. Alongside him stood Katherine Magbanua, Charlie's girlfriend, the link to the hired killers. One, a Latin King leader, the other, Katherine's other lover and the father of her children. And looming over it all, the matriarch, Donna Adelson, accused of pulling strings behind the scenes to protect her family's interests. What began as a custody dispute ended as a tragic execution, one that exposed the darkness hidden within a prominent family. The link. Katherine, or Katie Magbanua. She is the one. You know, you look at this whole thing, you've got the hitmen, the evil hitmen, right? They physically are the ones who take the drive and take out Dan Markel. Then you have Charlie Adelson and maybe other members of his family, but Charlie Adelson at a minimum, who was helping plot and plan and putting this whole thing in motion. But it doesn't happen without Katie Magbanua. She's the one in the middle, the link between Charlie, who she's sleeping with, and Sigfredo, who she's sleeping with, putting this deal together, motivated by this greed and this money, without a thought in her mind about what's going to happen to two little boys who grow up without a dad. She puts this together. She's as guilty as the rest of them and has been prosecuted. The other problem I have with her, though, and this is a big problem, is she's testified many times, but has said two completely opposite things about what happened. 2019, during her trial, when she is the one who is saying she didn't do it, and then in 2025 when Charlie Adelson, or no, 2025 when Donna, I confused my Adelsons, when Donna Adelson is on trial, she says something completely different. Take a look.
Did you have anything to do with the murder of Dan Markel?
No, ma'am.
Did you get the father of your children, Mr. Garcia, to commit a murder on behalf of Mr. Charlie Adelson?
No, ma'am.
Were you involved in the death of Dan Markel?
Yes, ma'am.
Did we have it right? Were you the middleman between the shooter and Charlie Adelson?
Yes, ma'am.
Who solicited you to become involved in this?
Charlie.
You know, in both scenarios, you take the oath and you get up on the witness stand to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But we know that she lies. We know that she lies under oath. That is proof right there. She's saying two completely different things. And that brings us to the first question in our investigation. When is Katherine Magbanua lying? 2019, 2025, both not? Like, what is going on here? Need to answer this question. Here to help answer that question, body language expert Tiffany Lee is with us, and former homicide detective and host of The Interview Room with Chris McDonough. It is Chris McDonough. All right, great to have you both here. Let's start here. Let's first analyze 2019 Katie Magbanua. We're going to take a look at a longer piece of her testimony here. And Tiffany, I want you to look at the body language, and if you see anything that indicates anything here. Let's begin.
Did you have anything to do with the murder of Dan Markel?
No, ma'am.
Did you get the father of your children, Mr. Garcia, to commit a murder on behalf of Mr. Charlie Adelson?
No, ma'am.
Well, did you back then know someone by the name of Dan Markel?
No, ma'am.
All right. In 2014, you've learned that Wendy Adelson's divorce was already finalized, right?
I learned it here.
In court.
Yes.
And how did Charlie talk about his sister to you? Charlie Adelson.
He didn't.
He didn't talk about her to you at all?
I mean, he told me he had a sister, he had a brother, but that's about it. Not any details.
All right, Tiffany Lee, what are you seeing there from the 2019 Katie Magbanua?
2019, we're seeing the classic symptom here of she is verbally saying one thing, but her body is physically saying something else. So when she's starting to go through those questions and she's saying yes, she's saying no, I'm sorry, she's shaking her head. Yes, almost even before they can finish the question, she's already non-verbally saying yes, even though she's verbally saying no. So this is something that we definitely want to listen to and pay attention to, because when those two things don't match, when they're not congruent, the likelihood of you being honest in that moment is not very high.
It's amazing. It's a simple question, right? It's a simple yes/no question, but her body language revealed a different answer. All right, Chris McDonough, you know, how do you, as an investigator, figure out when someone is telling you the truth and when someone is lying? In an instant like this is a crucial piece of the case.
Yeah, I mean, Vinnie, like what Tiffany's talking about there, I mean, you have to pay attention to the minutia details. And, you know, that simple head nod like that, you know, confirms that, you know, she's being asked a simple question, you know, yes or no, and she's answering no, but she's nodding her head down, and then she looks over at the, you know, her I think it was her husband at that time, and or, you know, the other defendant anyway. But yeah, it's literally patience and just taking your time as you're going through the interview process.
All right, let's flash forward. We're going to 2025 now. 2025, this is when she's a witness in the case of Donna Adelson.
What about the second time?
I've been living a lie this whole time, and it was just so hard to come out with the truth that I kept fighting.
Did anybody threaten you or harm you to prevent you from coming forward with the truth?
No, ma'am.
Were you ever promised anything by anyone to, you know, if you'll just remain silent, we'll pay for your kids' education or anything like that?
No, ma'am.
Were you involved in the death of Dan Markel?
Yes, ma'am.
Did we have it right? Were you the middleman between the shooter and Charlie Adelson?
Yes, ma'am.
Who solicited you to become involved in this?
Charlie.
Who was he to you at that time?
We were dating at that time.
All right, Tiffany Lee, what are you seeing here? Should we believe her, not believe her?
Totally different demeanor here. First of all, you've got her tone is very different from the previous testimony. Before, she was, I don't want to say aggressive, but she was very confident in what she was saying. But here, she's soft. Her tone is lowered. When she's saying yes to things, her head is nodding yes. When she's saying no, her head is nodding no. So all of those things are lining up. But one thing that we also see here is if you watch her really, really closely, after she's saying yes, she almost kind of does like this sigh. You see her take a breath and then exhale. It's almost as if a sigh of relief, like I can finally admit this. I can stop pretending this is the truth.
Yeah, Chris, you know, this is, from the beginning, they wanted her to flip. Like, prosecutors based upon and investigators based upon the evidence believe she was involved. She would never flip. She wouldn't take a deal, etc. Would you be hesitant at all in believing someone after they go to trial and lie on the stand? Would you be hesitant in believing the story that they finally tell you?
Yes. sometimes you have to just kind of sit back and you go, okay, what kind of circumstantial evidence do we have here that we can put in front of this person just to kind of see if they're going to substantiate it. It helped, obviously, in this investigation that all of the cell phone and the financial data started to fall into place. And then, of course, the undercover, recordings that they had. But yeah, there's always, as you know, Vinnie, more than anybody, being in the courtroom, especially as an investigator, you're kind of skeptical until you can get it out of their mouth directly. You just never know where they're going to go, especially if there's a potential of them being a co-defendant.
All right, Tiffany Lee, let's take a look at one more here. This, again, we're going to go back now to 2019. She was a prosecution witness in 2025, but here she's being cross-examined by the prosecutor.
Isn't it true that you've been offered some kind of big payoff if you refuse to cooperate against Charlie Adelson?
If I refuse?
Yes, ma'am.
No.
Has anybody offered you some money?
No.
Do you remember telling anybody that you would be able to stay home after you get acquitted and have a tutor for your kids to be homeschooled at the house?
No. Never made that comment.
Did you ever show your breast to some people and tell them that you got them courtesy of the professor?
Definitely never happened.
Did you ask somebody if she thought God would forgive you for the role you had in this case?
No.
What do you think about that, Tiffany?
So a couple of things here. That last tail end when she says it definitely never happened. That's something that I always like to watch out before, because as we said earlier, it's a yes or a no. When we start to add these extra words at the beginning or extra words at the end, that can be a sign that you're kind of trying to distance yourself, but also something to look into, because like we said, it's a simple yes or a no. So adding those extra words is definitely a signal that something is going on. And then something else I picked up on was the repeating of that question, that very first question. She repeats it. And that's a way in our mind, subconsciously, a slight stall. And then it gives us, our brains, a chance to say, okay, let me see how I can come up with an answer for this. And also let me distance myself from this. I'm going to repeat the question, distance myself, and give my brain a moment to catch up. These are all classic signs that you may not be telling the truth.
And Chris is nodding his head. I know he's seen that in the interrogation room or the interview room where he's had defendants and suspects. Chris McDonough, we're out of time, but thank you so much. Tiffany's going to stick around.
Thank you.
Coming up next, when is Charlie Adelson lying?
I can be part of paying for a murder. This is insane. And she's like, look, if you don't pay in 48 hours, they will kill you.
Matriarch of the Adelson family gets arrested.
Terrible. Donna Adelson is facing charges of murder, the death of her former son-in-law, Dan Markel.
Prosecutors say a bitter child custody battle was the motive for the murder-for-hire plot. Now that Donna has turned into a defendant, what's next for the Adelson clan?
Now that the ship is really sinking fast, blood doesn't matter that much.
The Matriarch Mastermind Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
The defendant wasn't scared of Katherine Magbanua and her associates. To the contrary, he was boastful. He was bragging about it. He was the big man who was going to solve his little sister's problem, make his mom proud, and get away with it because he was thinking of everything.
Well, he didn't think of everything because Charlie Adelson got caught, got arrested, got indicted, and then got convicted. But the conviction didn't take place until after he testified at his own trial. And it was interesting to watch Charlie Adelson on the witness stand, because depending upon what he was talking about, his demeanor seemed to fluctuate a little bit. Take a look.
And this blue car comes flying out of nowhere, flies in front of us, and slams on the brakes. And I've got a car, and I'm towing a 1,200-pound jet ski behind it. And she started screaming, that's T, that's T, that's T. I'm not going to be part of paying for a murder. This is insane. And she's like, look, if you don't pay in 48 hours, they will kill you. And I said, Katie, I feel like I'm getting extorted now.
So, is all his testimony true? Was all of it false? It brings us to the next question in our investigation. And when is Charlie Adelson lying? Is there some way? Does he change his body language? Do the facts not line up? Here to help with our investigation, body language expert Tiffany Lee and the host of Surviving the Survivor podcast, who's at the trial watching all of this. He's been covering it from the beginning. Joel Waldman with us as well. Okay, let's take a look at Charlie Adelson here talking about the time that Sigfredo Garcia tried to run him off the road because I guess he's sleeping with his woman. This is before he hires him as a hitman through that woman who's in the middle of all of this. It's crazy. Take a listen.
And this blue car comes flying out of nowhere, flies in front of us, and slams on the brakes. And I've got a car, and I'm towing a 1,200-pound jet ski behind it. And she starts screaming, "That's T, that's T, that's T." And I'm like, I almost rear-ended this car. And this guy gets out of the car, and he comes over, and he's screaming every kind of four-letter word at me, threatening me. His face was real red. My windows were up. And the guy was going crazy. And, I'm kind of a little bit boxed in because the front of my car was almost against the rear of his car, so I couldn't drive past it. And I had a big jet ski and a trailer behind my car, so I ended up putting the car in reverse, doing like a little bit of a three-point turn, a little bit, swinging the car around. He then got in his car, chased alongside of us, and you can't, if you're towing a jet ski with a car, you can't go real fast, you don't have much acceleration. He was right alongside of us, rolled his window down, was screaming all this stuff at us, and when we got to the light, it was just turning yellow, and I gunned it. And I remember making a left-hand turn, and I said to Katie, I go, "That guy's nuts." And he goes, "Nuts?" She goes, "He's really calmed down."
All right. Let me ask you first, Joel. Factually, is this a provable true story that Sigfredo is trying to run him off the road? Like, what did the facts show us in this case?
The short answer is I don't think it is, demonstrably provable to that point. But to answer your question about Charlie more broadly, I think every time he opens his mouth, he is lying. And to this particular story that you just played, he later says in trial that he never, ever met Sigfredo Garcia. So on the one hand, he's meeting him at this, happenstance outing in the middle of the street where Sigfredo is essentially, cussing at him. But at the same breath, later in the trial, Charlie has no problem saying that the two of them had never even met each other or crossed paths. But again, the double extortion, that is probably the craziest offense in the history of the world. That obviously was not true, and that's why he got a conviction overall. And then he denies complete knowledge of the murder plot. And Vinnie, you know that there is this bump put on by the FBI to try to bring Donna Adelson and Charlie Adelson out. And the minute he's talking to his mother in code and she says it's just about the two of us, he says it's probably about me. So you really can't believe a single word that either he or his mother says. And it's going to be fascinating because we're expecting her to testify as soon as tomorrow in this murder trial. We'll see the kind of lies she will tell, because I'm sure she will.
Big moment. All right, Tiffany, here's what I want to do. I'm going to play for you one more piece of his testimony. There he was talking about a story involving Sigfredo. Here he is talking about being extorted, which was really what his defense was at trial. Take a look.
What did you say in Dolce Vita?
I said that they only know part of the story, where they think they know part of the story. And
what do they think?
They think it was a murder for hire. And
what was it?
It was an extortion. And she's like, "My friend killed Dan, and he wants you to pay $350,000.
What happened next?
I stood up, and I started cursing it. And I'm like, "What the are you kidding me?" And she's like, "No." She sat down next to me. She started telling me, like, "I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. But I didn't know any of this was going to happen." And I'm like, "Katie, I'm not going to be part of this. I'm not going to be part of paying for a murder. This is insane." And she's like, "Look, if you don't pay in 48 hours, they will kill you." And I said, "Katie, I feel like I'm getting extorted now.
All right, Tiffany Lee, this is what I want to ask you. Do you see any difference between the two stories that he's telling, and can you tell if there's any deception in either, both, or neither one of them?
Yes, to answer the first question, I can see a slight difference. But one thing I will say about Charlie is that he is very difficult because I won't say he overcompensates, and he tries to stay super in control, super confident. He tries to keep that appearance up. And there are normal ways in the conversation where even the tone of your voice will change. And if, like in the previous clip, if somebody's chasing you off the road, would you remember every single detail of every single thing that's going on? And the same thing in this conversation, in this clip. He is able to recall everything almost too perfectly, where a normal person may remember things, they may forget things. It's as if he has rehearsed this over and over. And this trial did go on for a while, so that may have happened, but it's almost too perfect, too perfect. There's lack of emotion in here, which is a key that something could be going on, or that you're holding something back, because we normally naturally show emotion, and he just tries to keep it right here the entire time.
All right, let's take a look at a piece of his cross-examination from his trial.
Doctor, have you ever heard the saying that the simplest explanation is always the most likely? Have you heard that?
I've heard that theory before, yeah.
Was your explanation to the jury over the last little over a day the simplest explanation?
It was the truth.
You have a thorough explanation. Would you agree with that?
I told you what happened.
Do you agree that the only problem with having an explanation for everything is that there's just so many explanations?
There's no explanation. I explained what happened.
Tiffany, is he telling the truth about telling the truth?
This man is very agitated right here. We see all kind of eye blocking. This is the first time when he starts to show that emotion. Clearly he's agitated. When she's asking questions, he says, I told you what happened. He closed his eyes like, I told you what happened. She asks him another question. Again, he starts to blink a little bit faster. And then again, he closes his eyes. Eye blocking. I don't want to talk about this. This is irritating. This is agitating. I want to be done with the conversation. Something's going on here.
Yeah, I hate when you ask me if I'm telling the truth. All right, Tiffany Lee, thanks so much. Joel Wallman is staying with us. Up next, how strong is the evidence against Donna Adelson? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the murder for hire of loving father Dan Markel, who refused to not be a daily part of his children's lives, and as a result was shot and killed in 2014. Here's the story. Donna Adelson, the matriarch of a wealthy and influential South Florida family, once cultivated the image of refinement and control. But beneath the polished exterior, prosecutors say she harbored a desperate desire to protect her daughter Wendy from a bitter custody battle with her ex-husband Dan Markel. In July of 2014, Markel was gunned down in his Tallahassee driveway, a brazen murder for hire that stunned the legal community. Investigators claim Donna's voice was the quiet force behind it all, the one pushing for a solution to what she called her daughter's problem. Years later, wiretaps and secret recordings would pull back the curtain, exposing Donna not as the grieving grandmother she portrayed, but as a calculated, alleged conspirator. Her arrest transformed the case from a brutal mystery into a chilling family drama where love, loyalty, and reputation proved powerful enough to drive a grandmother toward unthinkable betrayal. She wasn't the first charged in this case. Prosecutors went after the hitmen. One pled guilty, the other convicted at trial. They went after the middle person, the middleman, Katie Magbanua, convicted her. Then went after Donna's son, Charlie, convicted him, and now it's Donna Adelson. So what is the evidence in this case against her? We got a really good summary of the evidence from Prosecutor Sarah Dugan, laying it out here. Take a listen, because this is the most important thing for a jury. Can you prove the case to me beyond a reasonable doubt? Here's some of the evidence as laid out by one of the prosecutors.
The state first wants to point out the emails in this case that detail the defendant's hate for Dan Markel and her motive. We also saw in the defendant's planner where in 2014 she had the year, make, model of Dan Markel's car as well as his license plate. We also heard from Rob Adelson and heard that she told him not to talk to the FBI, and when he let her know that he already had, she said, well, you don't know anything anyway. We saw that she signed 44 checks to Katherine Magbanua from Adelson Institute over the course of 2 years. This is despite the fact that Charlie Adelson had signing authority there. He could have done it himself. We also saw from the bump video, she was handed an article with Danny's picture about the murder. And she calls her son. He's the first call that she makes, and she tells Charlie specifically that this involves the both of us. She also tells Charlie Adelson the TV costs $5, or this TV is about $5. And that's the same TV that's referenced that Charlie Adelson bought instead of hiring a hitman. They go to great lengths to take a walk outside, to sit down by the water where they can't be overheard, to sit by the pool where they believe they're not able to be heard by law enforcement. We also have her suborning perjury by admitting to one of her friends in custody, Patricia Bird, that she did do what she was accused of. We also have evidence of consciousness of guilt in this case. We have her fleeing with an emergency fast-track visa she sought to obtain within hours of Charlie Adelson's verdict.
Okay, that's a good summary of what they have, and that brings us to the next question in our investigation. How strong is the evidence against Donna Adelson? We got a great summary there. How strong is it, though? Here to help answer that question, former state attorney from Palm Beach County, Florida, Dave Arenberg, and the host of Surviving the Survivor podcast, Joel Waldman. Joel, here's how I want to start with you on this. Like, we've seen the case against Sigfredo, against Katherine Magbanua, against Charlie Adelson. How strong is it relative to the strength of the other cases that prosecutors have brought here, from your perspective?
I mean, from my perspective, I think there is just a Mount Everest worth of circumstantial evidence here. And obviously, I'm going to defer to my good friend Dave Arenberg, who is the Harvard-educated lawyer here. He can really tell you. But as far, I've been watching these jurors very closely. I've been in the courtroom every single day. I hope I'm not jinxing myself when I say this, because I do want to see a conviction in this case, because I do believe Donna Adelson is one of the masterminds behind this. But these jurors looked like they were ready to convict after Rob Adelson's testimony. And the evidence is strong. I mean, the fleeing to Vietnam in and of itself with a one-way ticket. Today, we had to watch jailhouse video in court for about close to an hour of Donna sitting there and essentially telling a fellow inmate what to write down, and she was helping to write it in her own handwriting, a script of sorts, in case these people got called as witnesses to testify on Donna's behalf. And that's just inkling, a tiny bit of what's out there. I think the future for Donna Adelson is very, very gloomy.
All right, now let's bring in Harvard Dave. Harvard. We'll just introduce him as Harvard Dave. No, but Dave, I want you to take a listen first to the defense's argument here for acquittal in the case, and some of the things that they're making or arguing on their side, and then answer that question: how strong is the evidence? Let's take a listen.
There's no evidence that she solicited anyone to murder Markel aside from these assumptions. The emails, the text messages, the testimony. No one has said that my client solicited anybody to commit murder. What she did after the murder is not evidence of her intent prior to the murder. Venting about how somebody's treating their daughter is not the same as asking somebody to have them killed.
All right, Dave, so what's your evaluation here? How strong is the case? Because a lot of the evidence we talk about is stuff that happens afterwards.
Yes, but when it comes to a conspiracy, Vinny, the stuff that happens afterwards is relevant because it's still part of the conspiracy. The conspiracy doesn't end when the murder takes place. Attempts to hide your tracks, that's part of the conspiracy. That's evidence that can and will be used against her. And the evidence that you showed earlier in the clip, that's all real. The prosecution is right. They got all that stuff. But to me, a couple flaws here with the defense arm. When they say that there's no evidence she solicited anyone, there doesn't need to be. The conspiracy doesn't mean she has to solicit anyone. It just means she has to agree to the plan, and someone in that group has to do an overt act, has to do something. Well, she also did stuff like paying off Katie Magbanua or delivering the money or all the other things that were mentioned. The bump shows how guilty she is. The license plate, that's before the murder happened. She had Danny's license plate in her planner. So that's pretty telling. And then finally is this. Look, the defense has already said that the case against Charlie and has been proven that Wendy is involved in this. They said this stuff. And so they would have us believe that somehow the helicopter mom, the one who's so domineering, who's so involved in every aspect of her daughter's life, was the one family member in all of this who had nothing to do with this plot. That is unbelievable, impossible to believe, guilty.
Yeah, and Dave, you pointed out a piece of evidence. I want to show everyone this, about the evidence about Dan's vehicle. Let's take a look.
In the 2014 planner, did Mrs. Adelson keep a lot of personal information and identifying information for members of her family and even, I think, some friends in there too?
She did.
Did you locate any information specific to Dan Markel's vehicle?
We did.
What information was that?
Is the 08 Accord on the left middle of the page, right there. It's the 08 Accord and the tag number.
Yeah, Joel, I'm trying to think of the innocent explanation for that. I can't find it right now.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about that, so that came from her former attorney, Dan Rashbaum, and it was not compelled. That was not part of discovery. They didn't have to turn it over. So kudos to the state attorney's office and Pat Sanford. That's the FBI agent who arrested Donna, by the way. They just happened to be looking at this and found that it wasn't on a particular day, but it was prior to the murder in 2014. So not only is that incredibly damning for Donna Adelson, but where'd she get that license plate number? My contention, my opinion, obviously it comes from Wendy Adelson, who could be next. And one other thing, today, Vinny, there was a witness, a character witness for Donna Adelson on the stand who said that Donna called absolutely distraught, and it was on a WhatsApp call. There's one problem with that. In 2014, you could not call on WhatsApp. So they called this witness back, Georgia Croster. It was a mic drop moment. So some of Donna's friends aren't quite truthful either.
Ooh, yikes. All right, let's take a look at this, Dave, because I thought this was significant too, something we haven't seen in any of the trials, which was the testimony of the other son, Rob. Take a look.
It was either that afternoon or the next day, but, you know, and she called me and said, you know, I just want to let you know, if the police come around, don't talk to them.
Okay, so she told you not to talk to law enforcement.
Correct.
Did you let her know that you already had talked to law enforcement?
Yeah, I said I already did.
What did she say to that?
She said, "Oh, well, you don't know anything anyway."
You don't know anything anyway?
Correct.
Dave Arenberg, to me that is compelling. After the Markels and after Dan's two boys, this is the person I feel most sorry for in all of this, which is like, Rob Adelson, whose entire family imploded, but it seems like he has acknowledged and recognized that fact and made it very clear on the witness stand.
Vinny, I really felt for Rob, and I'm sure the jurors did as well. And my good friend Joel Waldman has said that Rob Adelson was the most powerful witness. He said that on his very fine podcast. I agree. I actually think he's the star of this trial. We had not heard from him before. We didn't know what to expect. Here is the so-called black sheep of the family. He is the one honorable one because everyone else seemed to go along with this plot. So when Rob spoke, you can see he spoke from a position of pain, of sincerity. He didn't want it to be there, but he did it because it was the right thing to do. And I think he's extremely credible. And there was word that Donna was very worried about Rob's testimony. You can see why. He spoke the truth.
Yeah. What incredibly powerful, Joel. Incredibly powerful witness. And to me, it reveals a lot about this family.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, I look at the Alexander brothers, which is a totally different case, but also out of Miami, where there's 3 bad brothers and 1 good one. And here, it's like the whole family are black sheep, to Dave's point. But, you know, the amount of courage it took for Rob to get up there and speak the truth. And then also, I know he feels a level of guilt that's indescribable towards the Markels. Like the burden is on his shoulders because of his family. One of the things that really just gave me goosebumps right now, he's an ear, nose, and throat doctor, but not any kind of ear, nose, and throat doctor. He actually reconstructs faces after people are shot in the face, let's say, by a gun. And that's exactly what happened to Dan Markel. Dan Markel couldn't be saved, but on a daily basis, that's the kind of work this guy does. Wow. He is helping victims like Dan Markel. So definitely the good egg in the family.
Yeah, great insight, and you'll get all that insight on Surviving the Survivor. Incredible podcast. Joel Wallman, thanks so much. Dave Arenberg's going to stick with us. Still to come, who's more likely to be charged, Harvey or Wendy?
Who did the 786 number belong to?
So the 786 number belonged to Sigfredo Garcia.
Matriarch of the Adelson family gets arrested.
Terrible. Donna Adelson is facing charges of murder, the death of her former son-in-law, Dan Markel.
Prosecutors say a bitter child custody battle was the motive for the murder-for-hire plot. Now that Donna has turned into a defendant, what's next for the Adelson clan?
Now that the ship is really sinking fast, blood doesn't matter that much.
The Matriarch Mastermind Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
I don't want to give it to you. Why do I have to? This way no picture. Why do I have to give it to you?
That was a big moment. It was also big news when it happened. So after Charlie Adelson is convicted, Donna gets arrested. She's at the airport with a one-way ticket to Vietnam, which is now being used against her. But she was never charged until after Charlie Adelson's conviction. Well, now it's Donna's turn. She's on trial. And during the course of this trial, we have heard a lot of evidence about other people, like evidence that could be used against other members of her family, including Wendy and Harvey. Take a listen.
She had a series of detailed questions about what I would be doing on Friday.
And Friday is going to be July 18th, right?
Yes.
And that's the date of the homicide?
That's exactly right. If I had left on my trip at the scheduled time that she had known about for quite a while, I would have driven pretty close to Danny Markel's house about the same time as at the murder, in a similar looking car to the suspect vehicle.
From Mr. Adelson's, Harvey Adelson's call detail records for July 1st of 2014, and we see that 786 number you spoke about.
Who did the 786 number belong to?
So the 786 number belonged to Sigfredo Garcia.
All right, so in the evidence there, Harvey calling Sigfredo Garcia before the hit. What? And Wendy talking to her ex-boyfriend, finding out when he's traveling and where he's traveling around the time of the murders. Wow, that's just some of it. We've heard other evidence, which brings us to the next question in our investigation. It's about Harvey. It's about Wendy. Who is more likely to be charged next? Or who's more likely to be charged, period, in all this? Here to help with our investigation, former state attorney, Palm Beach County, Florida, Dave Arenberg, and former law enforcement officer and host of the Strong Enough podcast, Claudia King. Claudia, who do you think they have a stronger case against if they're going to charge someone else, Harvey or Wendy?
I think the stronger case is definitely Wendy, because we see that she was involved in trying to get her boyfriend's schedule to have that aligned with the time of the murder, even having them rent a similar car to him at one point. She was involved in the whole TV set alibi, and she knew Dan's schedule. To me, though, the biggest thing is when she drove by there that morning and saw the police cars and the tape and didn't do a thing. No mother would know that their kids were there that night and not make a phone call to make sure they're okay when they see police at their ex's driveway.
Dave Ehrenberg, I saw you nodding your head. You agree that the stronger case would be against Wendy?
Absolutely.
Okay, but now
And
let
I
me
think that's
follow that
where
up, though. Who's more likely to be charged next? Do you think it's
Wendy?
It is Wendy? You don't think they would use her like they've used her in every other trial, potentially against Harvey?
There's so much pressure on the office to prosecute Wendy. People want to know why. Why haven't you done this yet? And the answer is that they needed her for these others. Really, Harvey is towards the end of his life. I mean, he doesn't look well, and he seemed like he's involved, but Wendy was the person who had the most to gain, and she was the one who allegedly was trying to set up Jeff Lacoste. Why was she asking Jeff Lacoste on the day that they broke up his travel schedule? And then it is so interesting. I didn't realize until this trial that the killers, when they first came up to Tallahassee, rented this silver Nissan that was identical to the car that Jeff Lacoste was driving. It all looked bad. Also, she was at home with an alibi when the murder occurred because her TV was broken. The TV has been used throughout this as code for the killing. And yet the repairman or whoever was the witness said that it looked like it was a human who intentionally punched the TV. And also, I ask you this, Vinny, I know this was 11 years ago, but are TV repairmen a thing? I mean, do people really call the Geek Squad when your TV breaks, or you just buy another TV? Sort of seems like a weird alibi for her. Nothing seems to make sense for her. And I agree with everything Claudia said. The fact that she drove by the scene of the crime, which was way out of the way, really is very telling. I do think she'll be charged next.
Yeah, and Claudia, the other thing about Wendy, like in her first police interview, she's the one that introduces to investigators her family, her brother, and the old hitman joke. Do you understand that? Because I still, to this day, I can't figure all of that out.
I think she went into protection mode of herself, because I think during that interview, she also brought up Jeff Lacasse and was trying to say, we just broke up, maybe he's upset with me, because she didn't know he had changed his schedule at that point and left at a different time. So I don't know if she got a little nervous and just went into self-protection mode, but she kind of put everybody but herself out there in that interview.
All right, we have about 15 seconds left here, Dave. What are your odds that she will be charged?
Before the trial, I said more likely than not. Now I'd say it's 95%, and I think it's going to happen shortly after the verdict.
Wow, wow. Big thanks, Dave Ehrenberg and Claudia King. Great to have you both here. Incredible insight. You know, folks, when this trial ends, this case will not end. There's a very good chance that prosecutors will charge another Adelson. But even if they don't, Charlie won't go down without a fight. He will use all his time and effort in trying to get a new trial. But even if he does, it doesn't change the overwhelming evidence against him. The question now is, does that same evidence convict his mother, Donna Adelson? I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.